And there is Dallas, the Big D, and a huge win for Spain, 2-0 over France, off to New York, New Jersey for the World Cup final. Yes, one team has been announced. Welcome to Bet365 for the win, a beautiful home for the beautiful game. I'm James Sharman, joined by Gareth Wheeler, Ollie Platt, and Christian Jack. Also today, who'll Spain meet in Sunday's final, England or Argentina? And a 64-team World Cup. It's coming, believe me, but don't blame me. We'll talk about whether they should bring it aboard or not in a few minutes' time. But to start with, Spain 2, France 0. Ollie, let's start with you. What a performance by Spain. It seemed any rhythm France even felt the smallest amount of, it was trounced on by this remarkable Spanish performance.
Yeah, pretty masterful, to be honest, in terms of the way they want to play the game. This was a masterclass of it. And I think in a World Cup that has been dominated by stars, this game really burst that bubble because it was the better team. It was the team with the clearer idea of how they wanted to play, the team that imposed themselves. Obviously, Spain have some tremendous players. Lamine Yamal was very good today, but it felt like a team where the pieces almost are interchangeable and there's no real clear weaknesses. And that was superior to France on the day. I've got to say, I found France very, very disappointing. I don't think this was just Spain being brilliant and completely subjugating them. I just didn't think they seemed to come into this game with an idea of how they were going to counteract anything that Spain were clearly going to try to do to win this game today. But to focus on Spain, the winners first and foremost, it was a dominant performance and another one where, again, as much as the stars have dominated this particular World Cup, what often comes out at the end is the midfields. I think when you look back over recent winners, that's the area of the pitch where they're often superior to the rest of the fields. And today, Rodri, as he has been for years for Spain, Fabian Ruiz was brilliant as well. That was the area in which they really just kind of showed their superiority against the French side that didn't seem to have many answers in that area of the pitch in particular.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I would say that for me, I think it's one of the greatest World Cup semi-final performances of all time. It's certainly in modern memory. I've been fortunate to have watched each of the last 18 semi-finals live all the way back to 1990. And, when you think about those semi-finals, a lot of those semi-finals are tense, they're tight, they're decided by moments. And I looked into it, 14 of those 18 were decided by one goal or less. The only ones that weren't were the two last time, which were pretty convincing. Argentina over Croatia, France over Morocco, the 7-1 dismantling of Brazil, and then that fabulous Italy-Germany game in 06 that was just decided in the last second in extra time, which was a very close game. So when you think about true one-sided semi-finals, this is right up there. And to put that into context, history will tell the story of it being Spain 2, France 0, but present day needs to tell the story about just how remarkable France were coming into this. And in the eyes of many, the favorites to win the game, and they were just deemed irrelevant by what was a brilliant performance by Spain. So for me, as I said, one of the best performances you're ever going to see in a World Cup semi-final, and one that will make them overwhelming favorites on Sunday.
Yeah, the manager counts here. And it's a little bit awkward that on the day that Didier Deschamps manages his 26th World Cup game, the most of any manager all time, he gets outmanaged by De La Fuente, who once again proved that he can set up his team. That's the key word, his team to win. Since he took over, this team has only lost one knockout or one game in a major tournament, and that was in penalties in Qatar. That's it. They just all they do is win. And now they beat the French team 3 times in a row. And it's 3 major tournaments, the Euros, the Nations League, and now the World Cup. I just think that he's such a brilliant manager. It shows how important it is to have a system within your country and be able to not only bring players through, but bring coaches through as well. And he's really the poster boy of it. No real experience at the professional level, big experience, but just an individual who's really sharpened his teeth with the Spanish national team programs and has worked their way through. This team now, aside from penalty shootouts, is unbeaten in their last 37 games. For whatever reason, Spain was just underrated coming into this game, and I fully understand the strength of the French side, but the French back line was rarely tested. there was a considerable mismatch on the field. Lamine Yamal against Luca Digne down the Spanish right side, left side. And when Pedro Porro came on to attack as well, it just meant double trouble, especially when Saliba went out of the game. And just the French just completely lost their bearings after that, just superiorly organized, a side that's worth their weight in gold, and a team that's going to be fighting for the ultimate golden prize at the end of this. I just think that sometimes we look at the names on the back of the kits rather than the teams that are in front of us. And this team throughout the tournament has been full marks. And just one more thing, I think France was able to take advantage of just their pace and their attacking games. They played every one of their matches outside at this World Cup. This was their first game in a climate-controlled indoor stadium where the other team has sufficient legs to go on and take them on a little bit. I think that that's been an emerging story of this World Cup, how differently the games are played outside from how they're played inside. KJ, I mean, you've been in both. And I mean, the tempo of the games and the way that they're played in an outdoor stadium versus the indoor stadium, it's like night and day within this tournament.
Well, listen, I mean, let's be honest. Entering this match, 16 goals France has scored. That they rolled through most teams, and let's be honest, a relatively, I won't say an easy run, but you have Morocco, you have some of these teams that haven't been that great. Paraguay was poor, Sweden not great. In this one, look at the XG, 0.31 for a French team with that front four. That is unbelievable compared to 1.63 for the Spaniards. France were poor, as good as Spain was, KJ. France was poor. Was it partly because they haven't been tested just yet, or was it down to the humidity or lack thereof, as Wheels mentions there?
Well, there's a few things for me. I was talking to some Argentina fans on the plane to Atlanta today about it, and I felt that Spain had the edge because of the way that they played them in the last 2 years. And if you watch those games really closely, obviously people throw out the scores, but in the Euros, France were way better. Spain were way better than the French. And I know it was very close, but they dominated possession in the game. Then France couldn't get in the game. And the other one, the 5-4 game, they dismantled them at times. So it was a familiar pattern for me that they just couldn't play themselves. You know, there's some real football irony here. You know, Deschamps is the epitome of pragmatism when it comes to football management, and a conservative coach. And in 2016, when they were very close to winning the Euros, and many would say they should have, he was almost castigated for playing three central midfielders and not being this, swashbuckling attacking team. Then they went and won the World Cup by doing the same way. And then they went and got and came back in that fabulous final 4 years ago and in the same way. And so, for them to carry on that going on, they were up against history. You think about World Cups, teams that just go and storm through their way to win a World Cup the way that they've done it, you're really only looking at Brazil in 1970, maybe Brazil 02, potentially you could go there. But rarely does a team at the start who are the best team storm their way through and win it. They often have games like this. And I just felt that Deschamps was probably, in the end, almost biting his nails on the bench going, yeah, I had to play this way, but my old way, I wonder how I would have played against them.
Ollie, it's a great point, isn't it? I mean, I wonder if entering this World Cup, he thought, I've got my trophy. This is my last tournament. My legacy's set. So now I'm going to give the people what they want. And if it doesn't work out, told you, that's why. That's why I had three midfielders, holding midfielders in those other games all those years ago. Could that be what it was? Deep down, he's going, I did tell you this would happen.
I don't know. Maybe that could have helped today. Maybe it could have helped them get a bit more control on the midfields. But I also think that 2018 midfield was just much better. You had N'Golo Kante in there. Pogba played the best football of his career, I think, in that tournament. He was incredibly disciplined, which hasn't always been the case. I thought today that when we talk about the best team in the tournament, we're talking about the best team being the best when they play on their terms, in their way, right? I don't think France are the best team if they're playing on Spain's terms. And that was my frustration today was, maybe there was a plan and Spain were just too good and never let France get any kind of, impose themselves in any way on the game whatsoever. But I didn't see a lot of evidence of it. If you're France, how are you going to make that game more transitional? How are you going to make it more physical? Can you be a bit more man-to-man, create a lot of duels, create a bit of chaos in the game? There just wasn't really any of that. And I don't know how much of an attempt there was, as opposed to saying, we've got the better players, we've got this unbelievable front four, and they're going to carry us through. So I didn't think it was a great day for Deschamps, as much as his track record with France, when it's looked back on, will look very good, and he's got a World Cup under his belt. I was disappointed today. I just didn't think they looked like they had many answers or even a question to ask of how Spain were always going to approach this game in terms of control, slow it down, don't give anything cheap away, don't let them play in transition. There was no real kind of attempt to play the game on a different set of terms.
Yeah, not enough width as well. Just a couple of things quickly. Like, the two Spanish fullbacks are excellent going forward and played well today. But the decision to replace Desiree Doué, who played really well against Morocco, with Barcola, I don't think that necessarily came off. Michael Olise really picked on teams when he was playing inside, when he was playing weaker opposition. I think he's better on the outside and coming in, being a little bit more inverted, bringing the fullback up. Koundé was nailed back. That wide area, Dembele and Olise were both coming inside. There was no positional integrity there, and that's where they had to win that battle. That's how they were going to have more joy in transition, was finding space and opportunity out wide, and they absolutely had none. Like zero over the course of the game. And I thought that was a real turning point of the match. And the other thing, Tchouaméni comes in after not playing a couple of games. I know that Kone is dealing with a little bit of a knee injury as well, but another peculiar change. I wonder what the thought process was behind that, bringing in a player who's clearly not 100% match fit. He and Rabiot never clicked over the course of the game either. So a couple decisions that backfired on Deschamps in this one.
Yeah, Rabiot got that yellow card as well, which didn't help him in the centre of midfield. I wonder, though, KJ, how do we look at this French team now under Deschamps? Obviously, moving forward, brand new manager, different style of football. But you mentioned 2016 when they probably should have won. They've won World Cup, which sounds ludicrous to say, just the one World Cup. I mean, most teams would take that, wouldn't they? But that's two finals they've missed out on. They've missed out on a semi-final now. I kind of thought we'd get more from this group of players over the last number of years.
I would say winning is incredibly hard. First of all, like, they could play the Spain team next week and win. They could. It's not like they'd be smashed every time. The one thing that fascinates me in all of this is that modern day football is influenced by Pep Guardiola and the Spanish style and the Spanish way. And we go back to when Spain won the World Cup in 2010 and Germany lost that semi-final, and Germany came off the field going, we need to change the way we play if we're going to beat Spain. And they did. And they won in 2014. I don't think the French, the way that they play, the way that they think, came off the field going, we need to play the way Spain play to beat Spain. It's just not the way they are. It is not the way they are. They are incredibly stubborn. They're incredibly proud. And they are developing arguably the finest set of players in world football, the largest pool of players. So, look, they just came up against a team that were better than them again. And I think that they will go back and they will have a very good shot at winning future tournaments. And they are continuing to ride the back of arguably the best player in modern day football right now. And Olise is a player that can get the best out of them and continue to go forward too. So I think they're not a team that are going to suddenly disappear, James. They're going to continue to be in trophies, contending for trophies consistently going forward the way that they are. I just think the style question that I asked, I just don't think they're changing.
Yeah, I don't think Spain are too concerned whatever France does, because I think it has to be said, Lamine Yamal is the potential now to be the face of football for the next decade. Like, he is that. Today he didn't have a shot, but he was influential throughout. He drew the penalty, just the speed and pace with which he plays at, and he's not even full strength. And the Spain team's not even at full strength. Nico Williams has barely played over the course of this tournament. He flanks on the other side. Bain has played well, but he's no Nico Williams. Or Oyarzabal up top, not a traditional 9. I don't think Dani Olmo will be in anyone's team of the tournament, but an effective player after dominating the last Euros. Just
great assist, by the way.
Laporte is on vacation in Saudi. He's your starting center back alongside a teenager at center back. I look at this Spain, it's just the collection, what they are and how they play together is just so important. And De La Fuente is just such a good manager. There's depth, there's character. There's great. They have a lot of great attributes, right? And they'll never be as talented as France. Who is? Who is in world football? KJ's right. It's not just the French national team they're providing players for. They're providing players for around the world and their national teams as well, and making them better. So France can carry on. I just don't think any of that bothers Spain whatsoever.
Spain turned that into a strength, though. Right, just quickly, James. Like, I think they turned that into a strength that there's not necessarily. Yes, Yamal, but we know he's been getting up to fitness. There's not necessarily an outstanding individual that, if you're the opposition, you can say, if we stop this guy from playing, then we've got a real chance. And like that reminded me a little bit of the final 4 years ago in Qatar, where Argentina did a job on Griezmann, and Griezmann was the guy who made France play. And I think it was similar today with Elise. When Elise came off, I know they're chasing the game at that point and they have to throw everything forwards, but that was when France started to have a little bit of something in the game, because maybe it was kind of less everything going through one person who'd been very effectively managed by Spain. With Spain, who do you do that to? You could say Rodri maybe, but there's plenty of players around him capable of setting the tempo as well. It's difficult to really kind of know where to look in terms of shutting down that team.
Well, I mean, Ollie, it's a great point, because there are obviously individual stars throughout that lineup, but at this point, there haven't been moments per se for the Spanish team. They've just got the job done. They've been somewhat pragmatic. Today was by far their best performance, and they were, world beaters clearly. But you're seeing team players like Pedro Porro and Cucurella becoming these world-class wide players. And listen, good players, don't get me wrong, but they don't play like that for Chelsea or Spurs or Real Madrid, I guess, moving forward now for Cucurella, a good player. But it's amazing how they step it up. Do you think De La Fuente has a pick in the Argentina-England game, a team he'd rather face, or at this point he knows we're going to beat whoever it is, so it doesn't matter?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. I think maybe he'd rather play Argentina. That's difficult to say just because of Messi and his ability to transform any game. But I think Spain would feel like they could control things against Argentina, take away some of Argentina's strengths, maybe having more similarities to Spain. And I think Argentina are vulnerable at the back. They're quite fortunate to still be in the competition, I think, in some ways. England's, Spain could just absolutely put them under the thumb like they've done in the past. That's a possibility. But I think there's a bit more physicality there, a bit more defensive presence, maybe the potential to cause them more problems. But that being said, I think they'll feel like they've won the hardest game today. That felt like the final to me in a lot of ways.
I just want to add about the individual players. We saw a shot today in the box where we saw Iker Casillas, my favorite player of all time, Xavi Hernandez. We saw Sergio Ramos and we saw Carlos Puyol, and they're seen as legendary, right? Legend players, and they are because of what they accomplished. And sometimes when you're seeing present day legends, it's hard to think about them in the same way. We're going to think that way about Rodri. He's that good. Yeah. He's that good. Okay. Now, I love Sergio Busquets, and Busquets was a marvelous player. Xabi Alonso, a brilliant player. Both of them brilliant sixes. This guy's better. He's better. And he is ultimately, you could say, the most important player at the World Cup. With all the stars going forward, of all the stars scoring goals, he is the computer. He is whatever you want to call him in the middle of the park that makes that team tick. And that's why they're in a World Cup final. If you take him out and put Zubimendi in, they're a really good team. But with him in it, they're a great team.
Yeah, midfielders typically win the golden ball, don't they, KJ? And I said it last week on here, bet 365 for the win. Like, get your Rodri ticket if you think that Spain are going to go on and win this, because he's just been so important to this team. And it's been a long road to recovery for him as well. Didn't have a great year at Manchester City, returning from a really, really bad injury. But man, he looks in form right now. And now you understand why Jose Mourinho wants him at Real Madrid as well, with his collection of 30-somethings, which is now maybe going to become a little bit more trendy, 30-something-year-old players now. And it's not just the 22-year-olds that can get the job done. Just to answer your question really quickly, there are so many players that play in Spain across both the Argentine side and the England side. I think Spain, just based upon the history, I think they want to play England in this one. I'm not sure if it'll work out for them. I think it's going to be a really good final. It's going to be outdoors, something to keep in mind, hot weather. I think there's a bunch of forest fires around. The conditions won't be great for the final mid-afternoon in New York City. But I think they prefer to play England in that game, especially based upon the path. Like, England have played 2 grueling games at the Azteca, then in 40-degree heat in Miami. Just wonder whether and when that might catch up to the English at some points.
Wheels, listen, we're getting to that, right? In the next block. We're getting all England,
I
all
know.
Argentina. We can talk all about that, okay? So settle down. Okay, there you have it. We have one final berth at this year's World Cup after about, is it 6 weeks? Almost 6 weeks at this point? I think it probably is. We have Spain in the final. Will it be England or will it be Argentina? On the other side,